Excited to be here with Vaishnavi. You have made one of the most amazing series of videos that I've seen regarding what's happening with women and the gender industry and the transgender cult, I'm going to call it. And I'm just so thankful for you to be willing to talk to me. And I was just wondering how has the reception been for your video?
Thank you so much for having me. Having watched a lot of your videos, I've been thinking to myself, I must finish the film and I must have a chat with Erin somehow soon after I finish it. The reception has been overwhelmingly positive. And I have been receiving letters and emails from women around the world, like Morocco, South Africa, Turkey,
Oh, wow.
and places like that. Yeah, China, South Korea. So it's been extremely positive and very motivating. It feels like all the toil and that effort of just isolating myself for like almost a year seems very worth it when you read messages from these people about how they liked it and how it opened their eyes to a lot of new information, even when we are all part of this and constantly talking about it. So it's been very, very positive so far. The only thing is, of course, given its length, a lot of people are not able to complete the series because it's in 4 chapters. Many people watch the first one, maybe the second one, but the third and fourth is kind of like it can wait. It truly can wait because it's going to be up for free for everybody to watch. But it's just that it will be nice if everybody can watch the entire thing because it's what it is. The whole thing, when you watch it, you really it really opens your eyes to a lot of information, new information actually.
Well, and I feel like especially the fourth chapter
It's
is
my
so
favorite.
powerful because it talks about sort of how dangerous this ideology is and how it's hurting so many girls and women.
Yeah, it's my favorite because the first three somehow, delved on the clinical aspects of it, the mental health aspect of it. I had to be extremely, extremely careful in order to make sure I give the right information. I don't misrepresent anybody. I don't twist the words. It happens with films sometimes when you position something, even if that's what they have said, if you position something before or after something, the meaning can entirely change. Yeah, so I had to be really, really careful, run a lot of permutation combination in the first 3 chapters to make sure that I represent the detransitioners in the most positive light. But the fourth chapter was the most rewarding chapter for me because that's the feminist chapter in my mind. Because I'm looking at the political aspect of it, the legal aspect of it, the feminist aspect of it. That's the entire time I had goosebumps, and while positioning all the clips one after the other, I was crying and I was, it was extremely liberating to do it. And when the series got finished, I thought to myself, boy, if I can feel good about some of the projects that I have done, I think the fourth chapter would be that.
Well, and it's interesting that you talk about crying and sort of the emotion of this, because when I watched it, I thought, I've seen this, I've lived this, I've talked about this, I've testified about my experience. I didn't think it would hit me so hard, but I sobbed during the first chapter. And part of it was just that connection of knowing somebody else there. I just felt like you totally understood my experience as a child and wanting to not be a girl and wanting to just completely distance myself from being a girl. And it was about safety, and it was about strength and power and all these things. You just captured it, and it just, like, I just wept. I mean, it just was so powerful. And so I think that I was just wondering if you could kind of recount your story for people who haven't seen the video yet.
Yes. I grew up in a very conservative house, and like I said in the film also, um, there was not a lot of childhood left to be a child because you identify these inequalities very early on. Like I was talking to somebody else, you may not know what it is, you may not understand it, you may not even have the words for it at that time, but you know something's not right at a very, very young age. And I think that is so unfair because I just want to be a child. I don't want to think about what's wrong. Why is my dad behaving this way? Why is my uncle being weird with me? I don't want that. I just wanted to be a child, be carefree, play with other kids, and not really worry about what part of my body is showing, how modest I should be when I step out of the house, and why it must be somehow my prerogative to make sure that somebody else does not hurt me.
Yeah.
But it was not that way. I think girls don't have a lot of childhood left to be a child. They grow up pretty early, and something about that is really bothersome to me. And like you would agree, back when all this was happening to me, it seemed like being a boy was a free pass to certain privileges that you couldn't even comprehend. I didn't know what it was to be outside after 6 p.m., to play after 6 p.m., to play after dark, to be able to go outside the house after 8 p.m. to watch a movie. I didn't know what those feelings felt like. But I thought maybe I can experience all that if I was a boy, because my brother could do it, my cousins could do it. So in my mind, I was thinking, if only I was born a boy, if only I could become a boy. And, in your own little playful ways, you would like pray to some divine thing and wonder if things could reverse, or that if you could be a boy. So I grew up with a lot of those restrictions. And in India, I don't think I have ever come across a woman who has not experienced sexual harassment of any kind. You step out of the house, sometimes, unfortunately, many people, for them within the house, including myself, you face sexual harassment. And sometimes it's far more dangerous than just harassment. It's abuse, it's rape, it's molestation. So I know public transport, you travel back and forth from your house to your college, your university, and everything. There are some, there are these things that have happened to me in public transport that I could potentially write a book on, start today, and not be able to finish it till I die.
Oh, wow.
So many god awful things have happened to me in public transport, and I think I can speak for practically every woman there is during that time. And I had to travel, older women, younger women, children. It was basically the same thing. We were just there as pieces of meat for men to basically do whatever they want and get away with. That's my background, that's how I grew up, and I knew very early on that this is how it is going to be for me. And to rebel or to protest comes at a cost. You lose that support system. If you go like become a renegade and say like, to hell with your rules, I'm going out at 8 p.m. If something happens to you,
Mhm.
it's on you.
Mhm.
So rebelling it, protesting these patriarchal misogynistic laws comes at a cost. So you grit your teeth till this time you have the strength, or at least you have the financial independence to go out and deal with it, even if it comes at a cost. To be able to deal with it, until such time you're just there stifled, gritting your teeth, waiting for a time that you can go outside and deal with things, deal with life. And that's what happened. And when it was time for me to move out, have a job and things like that, things were a lot harder. You didn't have the safety net of your mom. You can come back to your mom and you can tell her things. You didn't have any of that. You were on your own. If some men found out where you were going, they would follow you. They would harass you, and it would all be your fault. You wouldn't even have known who that guy is. You wouldn't even, he must be punished, but you would be there. I have done a lot of things in my life, in terms of jobs. I have dabbled with marketing, human resource, adventure sports. I've done so many different things, and in all those things there is just one consistent feeling of being dissatisfied because of sexism. And I think I gave all that up about 7 or 8 years ago, and I have since sort of embarked on this movie making thing, which sort of also doubles up as my voice of activism, my the way in which I express my rebellion, my anger, my rage about the injustices in the world. So I've since been very happy making films, and I think I've made about 7 or 8 films so far, and I think this is the one thing that has made me feel like I would stick around for a lot longer than all the jobs that I've had in the past, because this gives me the satisfaction of doing something creative and at the same time conveying something, like bringing about some change. So it's been a ride, but I intend to keep riding it for a long, long time.
Well, and I think it's so important for people to you did such a good job of getting the emotion of capturing those feelings of helplessness and self-hatred that girls end up getting because they're told it's their fault. I mean, we get this mixed message. It's your fault if you get ogled, if you get molested, if you get raped, if you get harassed, it's your fault. But then there's this other message of you're not good enough if you're not getting attention, if you're not getting ogled, if you're not getting harassed, if you're not getting noticed. So like it's this catch 22 for girls. There's just no way to win. Either you have to sort of put yourself out there as a sex object in order to be okay, or you have to feel like if something bad happens to you, it's totally your fault. And both of those things, trying to make sense of both of those things in your mind at the same time as a girl, it makes you crazy, I think.
It does. It did, and that's what happened to me too. There has been there has been this time when you're in public transport, your breasts are often the target. I have had men molest me. I've lost count so many times that I felt like I literally wanted a way to just remove my breast from my body and throw it away. Like I did not want it. I hated it. The fact that it was there, I hated myself for it. And anytime somebody would even look past it, there would be a chill down my spine. Anybody just, nothing, no intent of harm or malice or anything. If somebody just walks past suddenly without my attention, I would just be like, what just happened? And how it affects you long term is you are not able to allow your breasts to be part of your body
Mhm.
in a way that you can accept it to be something that it can give you pleasure to. In intimate relationships, breasts become a subject of trauma. I'm sure so many women would agree about this experience that they've had. It's just like the number of times that it has been touched has always been with with just so much disgust that being intimate with somebody becomes a problem. And if somebody, even who you trust or who you love, ends up touching it, your radar is up, your paranoia goes up, and you're like, oh my god, get your hands off me. It's like that. So I know when these women want to get their double mastectomy and all of that, I know exactly what they're thinking. And I think the whole idea of me wanting to make this project with so much compassion is that we get it. We
Yeah.
get how horrible it is to have breasts, especially when it is looked at as an object of desire when you don't consent to it. And who gives the right to all these men to just walk past you and just touch it and just go away? I had somebody in my family do that to me, and that sort of created this sort of a hatred towards my body, and from a very young age. And this is the time that you're exploring yourself. Your body is you're becoming a woman, and this is normal, and it must be seen as a way of coming of age. And it's just a beautiful thing, actually, from being a child to becoming a woman, the way the body goes through these changes. But all of those things have been made into this awful experience for women, that you're just like, god, I don't want any of this, none of this, just please take it away and make me a man.
Yeah. And I think that that's what I mean. I sort of, when I was growing up, I kept thinking if I believe it hard enough, if I convince everybody enough that I'm a boy, then I won't mature into a woman. I'll just, because kids have that kind of magical thinking. And it was just this, if I don't act like a girl, if I don't dress like a girl, if I don't, um, accept myself as a girl, that I just won't ever become a woman. And so when I started to develop into a woman, it was really upsetting. I just it really bothered me. And like you said, these objects are the breasts, and for me, it's the butt. I don't know if it's because,
Same.
I don't
Yeah,
have
yeah,
big,
yeah.
but I can't
Yeah,
tell you
yeah.
how many times I've been in a crowded public space, and I felt a man pushing himself up against my butt in a way that is just like, it's so offensive. And
Yeah.
and you can't, it's so hard because girls aren't taught to turn around and say, get the hell away from me. We're taught to just, just
Be
put up
nice.
with it, just be
Yeah.
nice. And so it's like we're grooming our girls to be victims, and I don't know how to turn that around. Now now it's gotten to the point that not only did we groom them to be victims, but I think these girls on some level, these girls who identify as transgender, in some ways I think they're super strong, because they're saying, not me, I'm not putting up with this, I am rejecting this, I'm not going to be the object of your sexual attention, I'm gonna be that guy. And in some ways it's incredibly brave and powerful thing to do. Unfortunately, it means damaging their bodies and rejecting themselves. And to me, I'm like, what can we do to empower girls so they don't have to go that route in order to avoid this sexual objectification?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like the $1 million question, right? We want patriarchy to just cease to exist. That is what would be the solution. I mean, that would be the ultimate solution. We want capitalism to end. We want patriarchy to end. And I think those two things would put women
Do you think
back on the
though?
level playing
I don't
field.
think it would though, because I look at the Soviet Union, and I guess maybe communist,
Patriarchy still exists.
maybe it
Yeah.
did. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm trying to think if I can. Do you have an example of of where that's happened? Because I'm trying to imagine what that would even look like.
Nowhere. It hasn't happened anywhere because you can't take capitalism and patriarchy away. Isn't that all our fight about? From the time the suffragettes have won the right to vote till now, all of us fighting for our own spaces, we haven't been able to get rid of patriarchy and capitalism. No matter how a country is sort of dipped itself into communist ideologies, the problem remains for women. And I'm talking from more of a feminist point of view, which is above and beyond a communist point of view or the left right politics. I think feminism in itself must be a branch of politics, which is devoid of all these other branches of actual, idealistic politics that we have right now. Feminism must be our politics, putting women first and fighting for women's sex-based rights. That must be our politics.
Mhm.
What I'm trying to say is the day when we are able to ensure that girls will no longer be treated as inferior
Mhm.
and they will no longer be treated as sexual objects, be it in the media, be it in movies, be it anywhere. I think that is the day when women should decide whether or not they want to be a man. Because if we remove it, maybe they won't want to.
Well, and my suspicion is that that I would say the vast majority of these girls are embracing a trans identity for the very same reasons that we did when we were little. That sense of wanting to reject our femininity, that sense of wanting the same privileges. Because as you were talking about your experience as a girl, I was thinking about how my brother could go out at night and I couldn't. We actually had a public park that was across the street, a very small, safe neighborhood public park. And I went there one night. It was just turning dark, and I was on the swing set. I was probably maybe 9 or 10 years old, swinging, and a police officer came over and told me that I should go home because it wasn't safe. My brother was out all the time, and so it's just these messages of your body, your very essence of who you are isn't safe. No
Yeah.
wonder these girls are embracing a transgender ideology. It provides them with privileges and safety and strength in a way that they are not able to get as girls and women.
No, but you wonder if they do in fact get that privilege and strength too, right?
That's what I
They don't.
wonder.
They
Yeah, I
don't.
mean,
They don't because even within the trans community, you know who is the one that's speaking out loud.
right.
It's a
And that's the
man.
thing that's so frustrating is it's still
Yeah,
the men. They're claiming
it
to
is
be
always
women,
the
but
man.
they're the ones who have power and they're such bullies.
Yes, they are. And apparently, girls who identify as men have male privilege.
Right. And so, right.
So they need to shut up and sit down, apparently. And you know how it is for us women, even if we have all these identities, We're like, oh, okay, we will accommodate you, we will be nice, we understand your grievance, we are actual women, so we understand what you're going through, things like that. We are
Yeah.
always asked to accommodate
Accommodate.
and understand and nurture and somehow put yourself never first.
Right. And that's
You
one of the things that just has been driving me crazy lately. And I'm not sure if you've seen this, but one of the things that the trans identified males keep doing is they're talking about that we should respect sisters, not just sisters. Sister. And they're appropriating even the sense of sisterhood that women have. They're even trying to appropriate that and almost make that secondary. Like sisterhood includes everybody, not just you cis women. It's so offensive to me. And I
know,
just think it, in some ways, you talked about feminism, and I'm trying to figure out how it is that feminism has been appropriated by the trans movement, because so many women who claim to be feminists have just bought into this hook, line, and sinker.
yeah. That's what liberal feminism has gotten all wrong, right? It's like cajoling a male ego, somehow to be better than other girls. Like, I'm not like her. I don't think all men are abusers, so keep me with you, make me part of your group so that I can get some privilege that this girl will not get because she's an idiot and she wants to have feminist ideas, and the thing with even the way you mentioned about how these people want to reject femininity and want to adapt this transgender identity. I think what would be ideal is to adapt a gender non-conforming identity. That would be a lot. That would make a lot more sense because that is what I did. I would always wear jeans and t-shirt and a hat, and that's how I grew up. And I have always had my brother's friends make fun of me by calling me his brother. Like, it's supposed to be something that I feel bad about because I'm not feminine enough or something, and I should like immediately be like, oh my god, they mistook me for a boy, so maybe I should look more like a girl. Fuck that. You want to call me a boy? Call me a boy. I don't care.
That's where I think, like, not only for girls but for boys, like, how empowering would it be is if, instead of us saying you are a girl who doesn't like to act feminine, or you're a boy who does, to say you're gender nonconforming, and you can dress how you want, you can behave how you want, and that doesn't change your biology, but it
No.
does smash these regressive stereotypes if we start to accept that.
Yeah, yeah. And it worries me because in a country like ours, where instead of fighting for actual important things like gay marriage, for example, we have positioned this quintessential trans woman as the face of the movement for everything, LGBTQIA plus, face of a man dressed like a woman. How is that fighting for gay liberation? How is that fighting for equal status for people who are homosexuals?
Right.
I
Especially
don't
for
get.
lesbians who are told you have
Yeah,
to accept this penis now as a lesbian
that's
penis.
just the worst, isn't it?
Oh, I'm like, I find that just so horrific.
Yeah, I mean, even for a heterosexual woman, to for somebody to say you need to basically accept any penis is not right. I decide what I want to do with my life. You don't get to dictate terms to me. And the very idea of them claiming to be these champions of the LGBT movement and then doing this contrary thing of saying that, well, I have a penis but I identify as female, therefore you should just have sex with me. That's not how it works. And you can imagine in India, I realized through the process of making this film, researching online, I realized that there are a lot of these groomers on social media who claim to be lesbian and want to prey on young girls who, look for some form of validation on the internet because that's what we all do now. We are told that your sense of self will be boosted based on the number of likes, hearts, and shares that you get on social media. And all these men who pretend to be, understanding and caring and everything, send them messages, and then slowly these girls look for it as a sort of a what shall we say? It feels nice
Yeah,
when
it's just
somebody appreciates.
validation. Yeah.
Yes, So they fall for it, and then they send them pictures. And this happens in India a lot. And I realized that during the process, and there are a lot of AGP men in India too, who have their own Indian version of being this really disgusting housewife waiting for her drunk husband to come and abuse her.
Oh,
They
yeah.
have they have detailed it in some YouTube comments that, you know, this is how I feel in Indian language. This is how I feel. I wish somebody would come and abuse me. If that is what
Yes.
they think
And
females do, that
that's
is what they
something that I keep seeing over and over is these AGP guys who are promoting the idea that women want to be sexually assaulted and abused.
yeah.
And it also makes it that much harder if you're on a bus and an AGP guy comes and rubs against you or grabs your breasts. It's even harder to, press charges against that, because all of a
Yeah.
sudden it's laughable. Oh, well, it's a woman who did that to you. It's not a man who did that to you. Oh, I just find that so aggravating.
An actual case like that happened in India, in Noida, in the northern part of India, where this man and a woman, they used to be working together, and they were at this office type party outside somewhere, and this man obviously molested her, and she pressed charges. And you know, in India, the cases, they take forever for you to get a hearing. So when there was hearing, I think some woke lawyer advised this man to say to the court that he actually identified as a woman, therefore he is in fact that girl's sister,
Uh,
therefore it is not molestation. But
well,
of course the judge said, fuck you.
good, good. Because I think in the US they would probably say, oh, well, it's a woman, because even when they're putting together crime statistics now, things are getting so skewed because these guys are saying, well, I'm actually a woman. And I don't know about in India, but in our prisons here now, more and more states are adopting a policy where if a guy says that he identifies as a woman, they stick him in the women's prison.
Yeah, they do over here. That sort of an extreme mode of self identification hasn't been implemented yet, but we're getting there, because recently in a rural part of India, a man contested in a female only political seat and he won,
Ah,
because he identified as female from a very young age apparently. And there were a lot of activists and women from that village. I mean, they say the village from the village campaign for him, but nobody really knows. I mean, the
wow.
reason why there is a female only position is because that potential, that person who comes to power could potentially help women related issues of that area. And you throw in a man over there, however he identifies as, in a general category if you want, not in a female only category. And this is a first. Now when this happened, I freaked out, because until this time, until now, until very recently, you could identify as transgender, you couldn't identify as the opposite sex.
Hmm.
You can self-declare your transgender identity. You don't need to whatever, but you have to go through complete top to bottom sex reassignment surgery for you to get a document that says that you're of the opposite sex. And there are other problems in that, because once you get this alternative ID, all your criminal records from the past go away.
See, and I'm seeing that here
Yeah,
increasingly, that it's a way to get to escape the past. So, and these guys, it's concerning, because if you have somebody who's predatory and who's a sexual abuser, have just because they've had their parts removed doesn't mean that they're going to be less abusive. They're still a predator.
yeah,
And so women are still vulnerable to someone who's had a full sex,
yeah,
removal
yeah,
of their penis and such. They're still vulnerable.
yeah,
And what you said is so important, I think, is that we now have men posing as women trying to advocate for what they're saying are women's rights. But what that often means is they want their breast augmentation paid for. They want their facial feminization paid for. They want to be allowed in women's spaces. These are not women's issues. These are men's issues. At
yeah,
the same time, we have women who are at really vulnerable positions all around the world who are not being advocated for, who are being
yeah,
ignored. And I know the UN has just been, and the US and all sorts of, there's all sorts of policies now which are recognizing transgender males as more oppressed,
yeah,
trans identified males as more
yeah,
oppressed, more needy, more marginalized than women. So they're jumping the queue to get aid. They're jumping the queue to get refugee status. They're jumping the queue to get health care. Well, we have women who are dying in childbirth and children who are
yeah.
dying of malnutrition.
Yes, And you can imagine how it's far more devious and dangerous in a global South country where there's poverty, illiteracy, and all kinds of other mm, issues that are very unique to a developing country. There is very poor female mortality rate, and there is female feticide that is happening even today. So there is a good chance that, yeah, even though it's illegal to find out the sex of the baby, they kill the baby as soon as she's born, once they find out that she's a girl. It happens even today. There are these really old women, and it's actually like a ritual. There is a song that you sing to send this little girl away by feeding her this herb that is supposed to choke you or something like that. It's a proper ritual. So this old lady, the baby is handed over to her. She sings this song like a lullaby and kills her, basically. Yeah. And you can't file a case against it. Nobody really knows about it. And because even the criminal justice system is kind of empathetic that, oh, he's had a girl, like, so bad. I wish he had a boy, it would have been better for him. Oh, like, I understand why he had to kill her, because he wanted a boy.
See, and that's the
So
thing, is that we cannot opt out of our femaleness. We cannot. So they cannot opt into it.
No, they cannot. They shouldn't be allowed to. Yeah. And when they do that, what they're doing is, we haven't even have managed to get basic rights for women at the bottom of the pyramid in a large country like India. There are still tribes and people belonging to marginalized castes who don't even have a house, who don't have voting rights, who are destined to forever do jobs that is so inhuman and dehumanizing, like cleaning toilets and things like that. There is this one caste that is supposed to do it, and only that caste is supposed to do it. Nobody else would do it. So if you're born in a family like that, even if you manage to somehow get education, go to university, you're supposed to clean toilets. You're not allowed to get any other job. Now, this is where we are in 2021. So if you're going to come and tell me that a trans identified male is somehow far more oppressed than that woman, I'm not going to have it. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Here, take my rights, take my hand, take everything. I'm not going to say that. Yeah. I used to think that, I used to be a liberal feminist for a brief period of time.
Yeah,
and it is the most cringeworthy time of my life looking back.
Yeah.
And that's when
what I realized is, when I was in that place, when I was, a liberal feminist, I believed that my feelings didn't matter, because that's what we're taught from the time we're little. Our feelings don't matter. And so if this man wants to do something, how dare I, stop him, because it might hurt his feelings, and my feelings don't matter. And that was sort of the narrative that I had. And I actually, this is horrible, cringeworthy for me, but I actually wrote a letter to the editor. And it was this, very heartfelt letter about how I was sexually assaulted in a bathroom, and I've always been afraid of going into bathrooms. And initially I was against the idea of having transgender identified men coming into bathrooms. But as I think about it, I realize how hard it is for me going into bathrooms, and how I'm scared. And I wouldn't want any man to feel that way. I mean, that's basically what the letter said. And now I look at it and I'm like, God, oh my gosh, I was just like totally willing to throw my feelings out, my rights out, because this guy comes in and says, but I want to come in here.
I just want to pee.
I just want to pee. And I'm like, how could I have done that? How could I have? And that's where I feel like even, women get thrown under the bus. We throw ourselves under the bus. We constantly are undermining our best interests, because we've been trained to do that so much.
Yeah, it's the same for me. When I think about that time, I'm just having this palpable hatred towards myself thinking about that time when I thought, sex work is work, porn is cool because people who do porn consent to the things that is being done to them and things like that. I was brainwashed, because coming from conservatism to liberal feminism seemed like a giant leap. But I had to maneuver through the liberal feminist drivel for me to get to radical feminism, so I am able to see things as they are very, very clearly. Up until then, things were just like everybody is saying it. Maybe that's the reality. Maybe
Right.
I should be
Oh,
accepted.
of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny you talk about porn because I don't know if you know that I made porn for a while. And I actually thought it was very like I had a therapist who was telling me it was, I was like a social worker. I was doing a public service and I felt very like, oh, look at me. I'm so I'm so liberal. And I look back
I'm
on
glad
that.
we're able to laugh at this right now, but I totally understand
Yeah,
how
I
painful it
mean,
is
it
to
is
think.
that's when I look
Yeah.
back, I'm like, what was I thinking? How was I so brainwashed into this ideology that
Yeah.
is all about really men getting what they want, and one of the things that concerns me about the prostitution and the pornography is that this is, the transgender movement is really pushing these as, trying to legitimize these. And again, as someone who's done both, I know it's incredibly harmful. I mean, I could never say, look back and say, oh, I really hope my daughter grows up to do prostitution, or I really hope my daughter grows up to be a porn star. If I found out my daughter was doing that, I would feel like a failure as a parent, and I would feel so scared for her. This is
Yeah.
not something we need to be celebrating and advocating for.
Yeah. No, but when they do it, they're not advocating that for their daughter. They're advocating for some nameless woman who they don't care about.
Right.
But by saying this, they get the social capital of being part of the elite group of these people who are woke. And by being woke, they get XYZ privileges.
Right.
And they get to call us turf, and they get to punch us, they get to heckle us in a public event and things like that. The little slight challenge about looking at prostitution with regards to India is that here poverty is a huge deal. I mean, it is globally because basically we know that we live in a social structure that is basically ruthless, and we don't really care about having equal opportunities, equal privileges for everybody. We know that we live in an unequal society. In India, especially, this woman who is perhaps of the underprivileged caste has no other option but to do this if she wants to feed her children.
Right.
There will be a drunk husband who is probably pimping her out. And she doesn't have a choice about it. Now, if she had a choice, if she could get a job, she's not going to choose prostitution. Now, what happens is when these people who are willfully doing it, who have the privilege to choose whenever they want to, by saying that this is in fact empowering, they are taking away the one opportunity for that woman to never be able to come out of it, because they're legitimizing this as work. They're legitimizing this as an industry that pays, yes, but at what cost?
Right. And that's such a good point. And again, that's how I feel like this movement again, which is, the whole narrative of the trans identified men is how oppressed they are and how they just want, they're poor women stuck in men's bodies. It's not their fault. But as you said, this is really harmful to women on so many levels. And when you talk about legitimizing prostitution, it is really concerning because as you said, these are men who often get to choose who they want to sleep with. However, there are, when you look at they talk about how many trans identified men are killed, and almost all of them are involved in prostitution or drugs, and so it's
And,
even
and who's
for
and who's
women,
killing them?
yeah, and
Who's
who's
killing
killing
them?
them? It's other men. And
Yeah.
I keep wondering, like, I would so much rather live in a world where we teach men that they can't buy women's bodies. I mean, why don't we go down that way? Isn't that like a feminist approach to this issue? But again, it's how liberal feminism has just been. I feel like it's a men's rights movement now. Liberal feminism has been totally appropriated, and it's now about men's rights. It's not about women's rights.
Yeah, in my film I kind of went splurged a little bit in that idea by portraying all the kinds of things that liberal feminists say. In the fourth chapter it comes where there is this guy, and then there are 4 or 5 women around him. One is feeding him grapes, one is pressing his feet, one is fanning him, and one holds a placard that says, yes, king slash queen. So I know these things might be representation, but that is the reality. And the way they are gradually infiltrating into schools when they're talking about teaching them sensitivity or gender, whatever it is that they say, and there are these terminologies that they use, and the non-governmental organizations that work very closely with schools and children are now imparting very dangerous narratives that you can be anybody you want. There is no male or female.
Right. And
That's
what
happening
it
in
does
India.
is it denies, I mean, we do know that women are the ones who are primarily raped. We do know women are primarily victims of male violence. And it really concerns me that the UN, the United Nations, is actually starting to buy into this whole narrative and hook aid packages to it. So if there's a country that doesn't buy into this ideology, they may not get the aid that they need. So again, it's hurting, women and children are the ones who are most in need of that aid. So the
Yeah.
countries where they're being penalized for not adopting this ideology, again, it's hurting women and children. It's just so frustrating.
Yes, and UN's funds, which are supposed to come for things like safe contraception, availability of abortion facilities, and things like that, are now getting hijacked
Yeah.
and are going into surgeries um, that
Right.
are that are for trans-identified males, because they have been the loudest in this whole endeavor, and all the things that have already been on such backlog is now never going to come to the women,
Yeah.
because they have stopped it and basically made themselves the champions of this victim Olympics, and are now taking all the funding from everywhere, not just the UN. All these international human rights organizations have completely sold themselves out
Yeah,
to this one.
Amnesty International. I'm just, like
Yeah.
from the time I was a little kid, I always thought that was like the best organization that I could imagine. I just had such confidence in it, and I felt like it was doing so much good. And now it's been taken over, and I can't even imagine how an organization like Amnesty International now is advocating for the rights of men over the rights of women and children.
No, if you think about it, this information has come out, right? We know that it's a grave issue. They know that we know it's a grave issue, and yet they are able to get away with it because they know that nobody can do anything about it.
Right.
So they are now openly supporting men's rights activism over women's rights, whatever it is that they initially set out to do, and they're open about it, and they can continue to be open about it without any repercussions, because they know nobody can do anything.
Right, because people are afraid. And that brings me to a question that I've been curious about. Have you gotten negative ramifications as a result of this? Have you been targeted? I know that, periodically I'll open my email and get a, fuck off and die, you turf, or suck my girl dick, you bitch. Like, it's not something I get regularly, but periodically I'll be like, oh, yep.
I
I
mean,
was wondering if you've been targeted.
not for this film, no, but that
Yeah.
happened to my previous film, and that is what provoked me into making this film in the first place. But I want to challenge these people who say these hurtful things to watch the film and find faults with it,
Hmm.
because I am stating facts. Can
Right.
they disprove that testosterone does not do XYZ damage? Can they disprove it? If you disprove it, you can call me all the names you want,
Right.
and I will concede that you are entitled to call me whatever it is you want. But you can't do that. Can you disprove that after stopping testosterone, XYZ things happen to you? Your endocrinologist has lied to you that your chance of a stroke is as much as that of a man, but that's not true. It's far more dangerous than it is for a man. So, all these lies that they have been saying to you, I'm offering it to you in a platter. Watch it, disprove it.
Mhm.
I will come, I will announce a date and time I will be available at a public place. You can do whatever you want with me,
Mhm.
but not if you cannot disprove it. If you
Yeah,
cannot
that's
disprove it, yeah, if you cannot disprove it, you have to shut up
right.
and
But
let
that's
women
and
talk.
that's something that's concerning, though, is that I'm increasingly seeing liberals, and again, I hate this because I I was a lifelong liberal, so this is, I feel like I've just been completely betrayed, really. But I'm seeing increasingly these suggestions that we are completely wrong, and that science actually does back up the absurd notion that it's possible to be born in the wrong body, and that you would know that you're born in the wrong body based on your feelings. And this is starting to be pushed as science, which
Yeah.
and taught to our children as science.
Yeah.
And to me, I think if we start to undermine people's confidence in science, if we start to appropriate language in a way that reality doesn't make sense anymore, how are these kids going to grow up and make sense of anything?
Yeah. No, it is hard. I know. When they don't watch your film and dismiss it even before watching it, you can't do much about it.
Yeah.
But the reason why I made it, and I made it available for free for anybody to watch, is to welcome criticism and solidarity.
Mhm.
If there was criticism, I really want to understand, but they would have watched it, which is good, you know.
Right.
But I have this reputation of being this Indian turf. So anybody who shares it to their friends, my friends who share it to their friends, asking them to watch it, they will flat out refuse to even watch it because I'm an Indian turf. Anything that she says doesn't hold any ground. I still haven't heard back from so many journalists that I have written to, asking them to watch it and review it, or maybe even write shit about it. Doesn't
Right.
matter.
Yeah, just watch it.
Just watch it.
Yeah.
And if you want to call me up and say horrible things to me, here's my number. Do it. But you
Yeah.
would have watched it. Maybe we could eventually, after you know, be done with your rage, maybe we could potentially have a conversation. Maybe you will see some sense. Maybe we can meet at a middle place, or some you would have walked 10 steps somehow, and
Yeah.
not just dismiss me for being a turf, and without really understanding. I'm not phobic of anything. I'm not anti anything. But you would have known that if you watch the film. If you don't watch the film, there isn't much we can do, because in the film, I don't know if you remember, like, what David Bell says that it's not like they don't know that they are being stupid. It's that they don't want to admit to themselves that they're wrong.
Well, and if you surround yourself by people who are upholding this fantasy for you, then it's easier to stay there. And not only are they upholding it, they're celebrating it. I mean, so many of these men are being celebrated as brave and vulnerable and authentic, and it's just like it just makes me want to throw up.
Same. It's the same for me. A lot of these social media announcements of how they've been quiet so long, but they can't be quiet anymore. But they're feeling so vulnerable right now. But they're announcing that they're actually some special heterosexual.
Right? Yeah.
Like,
It's
there's absolutely nothing. There's no
no.
change about how they're
Right.
going to go about
Exactly.
their life the next morning. Nothing. No change. Maybe they color their hair blue. Perhaps.
Right. Exactly.
Other than that, you're still going to continue to be female or male.
Right.
So,
It doesn't
but
change.
by doing this, they garner this
Oh, yeah, all
feel
the yeah.
of nauseating.
Acceptance and
Yeah,
love, and that's where that's why, I mean, in the introduction I call this a cult, and I really believe it is a cult. If you look at the underpinnings of it, the trans narrative, the trans ideology, is operating exactly the way cults do. They're
yeah,
trying to deny reality. They're doing all this love, when somebody comes out, it's so loving. But then if you leave, these poor detransitioners are just treated like crap when they detransition. There is no support. There is nobody advocating that insurance companies pay for them to have their bodies somewhat restored as best as possible. I
yeah,
just heard a detransitioner who was talking about going to get she was trying to get her voice I guess surgery to change it so that it's more like it was before she took testosterone, and the insurance company won't pay for that, and she's treated like crap. I mean, people tell her she's a traitor, or that she's hurting trans people, or that she's responsible for the deaths of anybody who commits suicide. I mean, it's just outrageous to me, the
yeah.
kind of backlash that these and so if this is really about love and authenticity, they would be celebrating detransitioners too, but they're not.
Or, or if in fact these people have had problems, that should caution them.
Yeah, they
The
really.
transitioners should, if anything, allow them to scrutinize these methodologies that the world is sort of shoving down their throat, to see if it really is dangerous. Maybe it is.
Yeah,
Maybe it is
typically
some.
when people have bad consequences of a result of medical interventions, there's investigations.
Yeah,
Usually, they put the treatment on hold for a while they try to find out what's going on, and just the opposite is happening in this.
Because there is no money to be made for regret surgeries. There is only money to be made for trans surgeries.
Yeah. Yeah.
So whatever it is that these people are saying, they're constantly denying them as some form of minority, like a mishap that is supposed to happen when 1,000 surgeries are done by somebody.
Right.
So
Right.
this is like this one
That little
anomaly.
tiny bit. Yeah. There's always going to be, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's so sad for you, but that's not how it is for me.
No, and
It's
you
just
better shut up because we don't want
yeah,
anybody to know about this.
exactly. It's like saying, "Oh, I just had dinner right now, so world's poverty is over." It's like willfully putting something in front of your eyes, covering your ears, and screaming
Right. We're
when
not
somebody
listening.
is trying to yeah when somebody's trying to reason with you.
And at the same time, we're the ones who are authentic and we're the ones who are brave and we're the ones who are oppressed.
Yeah, treat me as victim. I'm the only
Yeah, I'm the
victim here.
victim.
You're
I'm
not
the
the victim.
victim. Yeah, it is. It's so bizarre. It is,
Yes.
I often just, I cannot figure out how people are so oblivious to this. And
Yeah.
so just out of curiosity, do you have a plan where for your next project?
Oh, I mean, hundreds of things to be done, right? But no concrete idea about what the next project is going to be. But there are a few things on my mind. But before I get on to another film project, I want to actually make some material changes on ground in India. You know, talk to a few people, rally more people, supporters about, or rather against the gender identity ideologies takeover. And in India, because we have multiple languages, there is a very issue of language itself,
All right.
because there is no distinct word for sex and gender in many languages.
Well,
And all legal documents, yeah, and all legal documents which uses English conflates sex and gender. And in every place that they have used gender, they mean sex.
right.
And now gender identity is a thing.
Right.
Sexual orientation has always been sexual orientation, but these words, they have sort of been mired with all kinds of ambiguities. And law is all about words, right? And if you do not have law, how would you fight against the injustice done to you?
Right.
If there is only when there is a law that clearly explains who a perpetrator is, who a victim is, and what the crime is. If you can't even define that, we are just basically speaking gibberish in court, right? So I want to see if I can, maybe write some letters, create some petitions, talk to some politicians who would have me and see if we can come up with some way to make it a bit more organized. I mean, you continue to have gender in your document for all I care, but know what it means.
Right. And
Make
the
sure.
self ID, I think, is most concerning. If that's, it's already happening here in the US,
Yeah,
it's starting to happen in other countries. If you can prevent that
yeah,
from taking hold, because to me, that's the most disturbing. I don't even know what to call it. The fact that we're now
apocalypse.
embracing, yeah, the absurdity of it. That I hear now that this gender fluidity now, so that I can be a man and then a woman and then a man, multiple times throughout the day, just whenever is convenient. And boy, what a perfect opportunity for predators. I mean, this is this we it's like we're if we wanted to create conditions to empower predators, we couldn't have done a better job.
Yep, yep. This is the most state of the art, intelligent model to erase women. There has never been something like it in the past. And we've seen some really horrible things, women. We've seen some really horrible things. We've taken to roads, we've fought for our rights, and we've seen some really horrible things, Erin. But this one is the most strategical, categorical form of violence against women that I have seen in my lifetime. I mean, I don't think there is going to be any change in our lifetimes. There isn't going to be. I do not have any hopes of that. But I do know that things will get far worse before it regresses to average. And all my effort, all my um, choice to put myself out there in public view to get all this vitriol is because I know that if we don't resist it, the fact that it's going to get worse is going to happen sooner and worse.
Yeah, it's gonna
So
get, yeah, the bad is gonna get much, much worse
yeah,
if we don't
so
fight
it's
it.
like an elastic, right? So if you do not, if there is no pressure,
Mhm,
you can basically just tear it apart,
mhm.
so what we are doing right now is providing that resistance in order to not sort of snip it.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that. If it happens, then we basically can just write off our rights away to men, which is already happening.
Yeah, it's already happening. I mean, the fact that J.K. Rowling was, attacked so viciously for saying such benign things. I mean, what she was saying they were so mild. I mean, when I think, I'm like, if we're not even, I mean, it's women are not even, we're not allowed to define ourselves. We're not allowed to protect ourselves. We're not allowed to insist that consent is important anymore. Really, as you said, it's almost worse than erasure. It's
Yeah,
like we are being dehumanized. We are being decategorized as human, and anybody who wants to insist on asserting ourselves as females, as women, are being dehumanized in a way that is really concerning, because when we know that that's how, once a group is dehumanized, then it makes it easier for you to kill them. I mean, it's
yeah,
easier for you to torture them. It's easier for you to dismiss them, all of
yeah.
these things. And I feel like that's what's happening, is that it's any woman who stands up and says, no, this isn't okay, is dehumanized now.
Yeah, quashed and completely silenced and at the mercy of any man who can do whatever with her.
Yeah, the fact that so often the response is a rape response or a violence response, to
Says
me,
something.
that says something so powerfully. And you would think that other men would be looking at this and
Yeah,
concerned, but it seems like they more think it's kind of funny,
yeah.
or
They think it's
the
funny, or they ask you to not speak up about it.
right.
But
Well, if you just be quiet, haven't we heard
if
that
you be,
before? It's our
if
fault.
you be quiet, nothing bad would happen to you. Oh, really? Really? Is that
Right.
how it works? Because
Right.
I have been quiet for a long time, and hundreds of bad things happen to me.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, at least when I did raise my voice, a few things didn't happen to me. So I am going
Right.
to continue. But
Well, and at
if you,
least I can go to sleep at night and know I'm trying to stop this.
yes, exactly, exactly. I couldn't have said it better. Yeah, at least we would have tried. We failed. That's fine. We would
Yeah.
have tried.
Yeah. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Oh no, no. I think it was a very pleasant chat, and
Yeah, I
I
really
think
appreciate your efforts, and I'm so proud of you. I'm so grateful for all that you're doing, and I really appreciate that you're willing to share your film for free so that it can, hopefully make as much of a difference as possible.
yeah, I hope so too. I mean, I am so proud of you too, Erin. You're amazing, and it was fantastic having this chat with you. I almost forgot that we're recording it. It just felt
I
like
know.
chatting, and it's just been like a really nice conversation. So, and on the fact, and on International Women's Day, which makes it even more
I know,
special.
which makes it, yes, that's so exciting. And I, when you were talking about, I don't know if you want to talk about what you did today for it to celebrate International Women's Day.
Yeah, yeah, I did. So my friend and I, we walked around the city. I held placards against my chest, and it said different things. I was in different places. To give you a sample, one of my placards said, "Make your own sandwich, you asshole." And another placard said, "Neither goddess nor slut." And I stood in front of a temple and clicked that picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another placard simply said, "No."
No. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's it. And there are like about 10 or 15 of them, and I just recently posted it on my social media, just hoping to maybe make people laugh, maybe make people think, and hopefully have a change of mind, perhaps. And this isn't about bouquets and giving your mother a free day off from the
No.
kitchen or something like
No.
that. This is a
No.
historical day, this is a
Mhm.
monumental day, and this is the day we fought for our rights to work
And this is
as
about biological females.
female. Yeah, everybody else, fuck off.
Yeah.
Just
Great
fuck
way
off.
to end this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you so much for having me.